Hey folks, today we're going to be changing the oil, doing a little regular maintenance on our 97 Geo Metro. We've gone over the tools that you'll need. I've warmed up the engine. Drove for probably, 40 miles today. So the oil should be nice and warm so it'll flow out very easy. We're going to be opening the drain plug and then draining the oil. Tools we'll need for today's oil change on the 97 Geo Metro are a 17mm wrench for bolting the drain plug on the oil pan. We'll also need a wrench strap, or a strap wrench for the oil filter. We'll need a funnel for putting the new oil back into the engine, and then a container to put the oil in, and then gloves for our hands. Eye protection is always good to have, and wear some old clothes. You never know when you're going to splash it where you don't want to splash it. I want to give you a quick tip. Whenever you change your oil, write the mileage down on the filter itself. Now this filter is black, so it's hard to read a Sharpie, so I've got a marker pencil that's made for writing on plastic. So I'm going to put the mileage here, 178, 891, and I'll put it on the other side also. I'll put it so it can be read, 178, 891. That way, in case I lose my records, I've got it written on the filter itself what the mileage was. Alright, we use our 17mm socket, or wrench, and then we drop it into the pan. Alright, let's try that again. 17mm wrench. Okay, it didn't take a whole lot to get that loose. Now this is a 1500 mile oil change. I just rebuilt the engine with my friend Geo in Austin. So these first two oil changes are pretty dirty oil from the oil change and then the initial grease that's put in to lube everything initially. So this oil is pretty dark even though it's only got 1500 miles on it. So I'm going to let this continue to drain a little bit. It's going to drain and dribble, and I'll let that sit. And meanwhile, I'll go ahead and loosen the oil filter. Alright, for the oil filter, I'm looking straight down at the engine. It's right here in the front. It's real easy to get to from the top or the bottom, so it really doesn't matter which. So I just wrap the strap wrench around it and then turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. And then the rest I can do by hand, and I'm going to let it go straight down into the drain pan. And if you will notice, there's a magnet on here. I did that to help collect any metal shavings that might have formed during the initial break-in of the engine. Okay, here we are underneath. You can see the magnet here. It's one of those real high power rare earth magnet thingamajiggies. So I'm going to move my pan so that it's underneath the filter, because as soon as you get that loose enough, it's going to start emptying out. Alright, we're almost off. Be careful. There we go. And we're going to set that upside down inside the pan and let it just drain. I've seen some other YouTube videos where people have opened up the filter to look at the metal shavings that it collects. It really does collect them, so it's a good idea to use a magnet. I don't know if those shavings would be filtered out by the filter itself or not, but just as an extra precaution, I used the magnet. Alright, we're going to set that in there and let it continue to drain. Before installing the new filter, I like to dip my finger into the oil and then put a layer of clean oil around the gasket on the filter itself. That way you get a good seal, and makes it a lot easier to remove the filter later. Alright, before installing the new filter, I take a shop rag, wipe off the mating surface of the filter, spin on. It is clean. We grab the new filter and we spin it on. It's really that easy. I'll snug it down with the strap wrench. We just turn it a little bit to get it snug. As soon as I get some initial resistance, there we go. In fact, I just go a little beyond hand tight, because you don't want to crush that gasket or wash the rubber gasket. I'm just going hand tight on this. I'm not going to use the filter wrench. Alright, that is good enough. Alright, another tip. Before you put your drain plug back in, you can use a white paper towel or a white coffee filter. Let some of the oil drip onto there. That way you can take a look later and see the condition of the oil and how dark it really is on a white surface. I'm going to let just a few drops go in there. I'll set that aside, and I'll use a regular shop rag then to kind of clean those drips as I'm getting it ready for putting the drain plug on. Still got a slow drip to it, but that's okay. We've got the oil out. So get that in place. We use our 17mm wrench, which I've set aside, so let me grab it. Here we go. Alright, so we snug up our drain bolt. Don't over tighten it. There's either a crush washer on there or a rubber one. You just want it to be tight enough to do the job without leaking. Wipe off any drips, that way you can keep an eye on it over the next day. I know I've got some other leaks that I'm dealing with on this vehicle, and I'll be dealing with those in the next couple of months. Alright, now that we've got the old oil drained, the filter taken off, new filter put on, drain plug back in. We're using the factory recommended 5W30 engine motor oil. Fluid capacity is about 3.8 quarts, so almost 4 quarts, and we are using a larger filter than what the specs call for on this car. That way we get more filter coverage and more oil capacity. That's 4 quarts with a high capacity filter. Go ahead and put the lid back on. Alright, on the passenger side of the car, we've got the oil dipstick. It's always been a tight fit on my car. So clean, sometimes it's hard to see the oil levels. So we take it out, clean off the dipstick, put it back in, pull it and check the level. Alright, we are at the top of the hatch marks where it says full. Be sure to recycle your oil. The rest of the last quart of oil that was in the container, I went ahead and put in another vehicle that I have that consumes a lot of oil. I've got an old 91 F-150, and it uses some oil, so I went ahead and added a quart and topped it up. So I've got an empty container now that did have the brand new oil that was in the that went into the Geo Metro. So we'll be pouring the old oil back into that, and then take it back to the auto parts store where they recycle the oil. I'll lean this up against a vehicle or something for a while and let that drain. As long as there's no oil that's going to mess up a tire or anything, the wind's going to blow it over. Let's get the last of the oil and put it in. Remember that magnet that was on the old filter? Well, I'll just take it off, and I'm going to set it down against the new filter and just put it on the side. So I'll put it on the side facing up. It doesn't matter really, but I figure if you hit a bump, it's not going to fall off that way. And we're good to go.